So today we're taking this original 1999 Game Boy Color and turning it into one of these. Along with that, we are going to 3D print this case. It's got a top drawer and a bottom drawer which holds a couple of extra games and 2 swaps of batteries. And this is a TPU liner. All of this is PETG. This here is nice and soft. So when you put the Game Boy in, or when the kids do it, they can slam it in and it won't damage it. All the files for this are available to download down below. Now to upgrade the Game Boy, I showed my son the website and we ended up with an radiant green case. And that's going to look really good. The problem we've got with the case is that this screen does not fit. So we have to shave away part of the case to get the screen in. The other thing on the list is a new speaker because the old ones are a little bit gunked up. So whilst we're fixing this, I'm going to shoot the next part of the print off. So at least that's printing in the background while we're fixing. This video is sponsored by Fortis Filaments. Refills start at $14.99, but if you use my code, you get $10 off 2 or more spools on your first order. That brings them down to like $20 for 2 spools. Peacock Blue has an amazing sheen to it. This was printed with 0 supports. Inside the box, the spools come vacuum sealed with an extra resealable bag included. I've been running Fortis since late last year and I've had 0 issues in my AMS with their spools. That's my take on an Australian brand, Fortis Filaments, link in code below, check them out. Let me know if you want me to make a video on these buttons. I basically tap them and the next print shoots off. So now let's turn this into one of these. So the ExtremeRate case has a few items in it. It's a really nice gradient, comes with a new set of buttons as well. And behind the buttons is a new set of membranes. These handhelds are 25 years old, so it's probably due. Now, if unlike me, you actually read their website properly and you understood what they were saying, there is a new screen cover, but we're not going to bother with that because we've got to cut it and we're going to put the touch screen on. Now, this is the same screen I'm running on this one. It's actually a touch screen, so if you hold your finger on it, you get all sorts of options. I've actually got it on a retro setting. No, my kids have changed it. I like pixel effect number 4. It gives it that original dot matrix type look instead of it being super clean. So let's get started. Links to everything will be down below. You can follow this method. Maybe you got some better ideas, share them in the comments. Now, because we're about to print this the second time around, I learnt a lot on the first one. I don't know how many revisions, how many changes to get this. So now that I went through all those mistakes, I got this one right. So follow along in the video, I'll drop some tips. That way when you print it, it works and you don't end up with bits that just jam together. Now these kits all come with the tools. I've got this, I've had it for 15 plus years, so it's what I'm going to use. You don't need one of these, just use what's in the kit. You'll get the same job done. Soldering iron, and that's pretty much it for this. The rest of it's 3D printed. Pull out the old Tetris, remove the batteries. Can get a USB-C rechargeable lithium in there. That's another mod. I haven't done that. Now I think these are called a tri-lobe or Y1. Now we've got a new top-down camera, so we're seeing how that goes. In the last few top-down shots, we're losing focus. So hopefully this improves it. Tend to take these 4 at the top out first. Just feels when I try and slap them out a little bit more solid. And that is the inside of a 1998 handheld video game console. Funny thing is, the screws are now all Phillips. So they're just trying to keep you out of the consoles, even back then. So that's the entire console. We're going to replace the speaker and the new screen. Avoid throwing these out. They are originals. It's harder and harder to find the original. So hold on to it, put it somewhere safe, because who knows what sort of projects come up in the future that these might be useful. So with the screen kit, there's a few different bits that come in here. Obviously the screen is one of them. This little PCB is another one, and we have to solder to this PCB. There are these little strips, and then there is this protective backing that goes on the back to stop shorts. What I am missing in here, however, wires that we're meant to solder. So we're going to need some wire. I have some wire. Let me find it. We're just going to go with this really fine silicon wire. It'll go with the color of the main board of the Game Boy. So to explain what we need to cut out, this lip here needs to go through. Where that bump is, we have to take this entire bump out, and we go a little wider to where the screws are and above. So essentially you need to go wide enough, and this lip will sit right on the edge here. Put it in upside down, and it gives you a good idea on the side profile how far down and how much of this we have to take out. Now a sharp box knife is handy, but I found this Bamboo Lab scraper was a really useful tool in cutting out that plastic. I would highly recommend just finding where it sits roughly on the top lip. So seat the top lip in here so you can't push the screen further up at all. Don't put too much pressure on it, just a little bit. Be careful, there is a connector there. And once you feel that that's in place, look under here and focus on where the black edge is. You're really focused on not the yellow because that's tape. We only want to take the black edge away. Just try and get a dot roughly where you see it. Then again on the other side, and then definitely on the top. And if you're looking at it now, you can see all those little black dots. That's what we're going to cut to. These are filament cutters. They can be helpful. Just be careful because they shoot plastic off, and I've actually had these snap and fire off. Pointy nose pliers is better suggestion. Having a sharper knife than what I've got here is probably also a good idea. You can snap these off at each section, but I've just worn it out that far back that's not going to make that much of a difference if I was to do that. And we'll put one in the back for storage. So next time, there's one already in there. I don't want to scratch the front of this, so something like a bit of bubble wrap can be quite helpful too. Now, I'm never perfectly straight at this. Doing it under the camera is even more fun. I just lightly score, doing a dot to dot, because you can always take more off later if you need to. Try not to scratch this surface like I just put a little scratch there, because you will see that. That's one of the mistakes I made with my daughter's one. Help you guys see a bit better, I'm just going to move this light over to there. So this bit here, it's fine to go hack and push it straight through and cut it one shot, but this bottom bit, you want to do it very, very slowly, or it'll fog the plastic. So if you push it through and pull in a single cut, putting all that pressure, the plastic fogs because it gets warm, it gets stressed. If you cut it slowly, bit by bit, like you're just etching away, it'll look cleaner. Anywhere where you're still going to see this plastic, just go slow. A lot more patient on this edge than the rest of it, because this edge isn't hidden. I know it looks like a hack job and an absolute mess, but trust me, it will look good, and I'm about to show you a trick to get rid of some of that fogging. Okay, so we still have a lip here that we need to get rid of in its entirety, and that is where this comes in. If you have like a paint scraper, that would achieve the exact same thing I'm doing here. Don't try and do it all at once. I'm carving away on this angle, and you'll be able to see the difference between this one and the first one I've done at the end of the project. Once you've hit the level, the scratches will start to come down this face here. So too deep here, I need to angle more. That's right, we can fix that up. If you start seeing these scratches come down the plastic face, stop. We do have a bit of margin of error, but just less over here. So I said I was going to share how to get rid of some of that fogging. Blowtorch. And see that edge is fogged? Don't do it too much because you don't want to melt the thing. How much better is that bottom edge? I'm not going to bother with any of this because it's behind the screen. Next step is the screen into here. I would suggest some isopropyl. Just clean up the bits of the plastic that the tape is going to go on. Just give it a minute it'll evaporate. I use 99% isopropyl. If you're using something that's 70%, whatever the others are, it's going to take longer to dry and it's going to leave a residue generally. So if that's the case, give it a wipe with a paper towel to get rid of that residue and stuff off there. So this is pretty straightforward. Peel these away, that's it. Slot the bottom in first, like a tongue, make sure it's lined up. I just like to lift the protector a touch. These little tabs get in the way from the top. You're not pushing down on the screen, you're pinching the edges and you'll feel it. It'll make a few clicks and stuff as it seats in. Push here. Under here there's no tape, but around here there is. So make sure you have pressure on the back, because if you don't, you'll crack the screen. Now that's a cover. Once we peel it off, it'll be beautiful like this one. We're just gonna leave that on there while we're working with it. So the next bit is the speaker. If you get the one with wires, it's even easier. If you want an easier job, then cut the wires and attach to the speaker, because then you don't need to muck around with the PCB at all here. I, on the other hand, will be doing both ends with the white. Yeah, I think these ones are well and truly cactus. So usually I'd use wire strippers. However, it's so thin you can just pull the silicone sheath off with your nail. You need a soldering iron. That's a yes. A little bit of wick, a little bit of solder, a little bit of flux. That will do. So if you've got helping hands or some solder assist, they're great, but you can also just use a piece of tape. I don't want to get my helping hands out. You just tape it to your workbench. So we'll plug in. We're going to 350. All right, just going to pre-tin these wires. Done. Now I like to trim them down before I solder with them. We'll line them up. All our wires are tinned, so just pop this soldering iron on and pull. Done, done. That easy. Both are done. And now our speaker is ready to go on. Maybe we can get some more light, jam it in here. It's a bit more light on the workbench here. Holy moly. Well, that certainly didn't work as planned. So these 2 points have to be unsoldered. I will just hold it this way. I'll pull on these wires, 1 out, 2 out. Now just clean up a bit of solder there. I've lost our speaker. There it is. These wires seem a lot longer than what these ones were. Oh. One is in. You can use your soldering hands. I'm not saying I should, but I'm not. Make sure you haven't got a hollow solder joint. That looks pretty good. We'll now lop these little bits off. And that's our speaker installed. Now I'm happy with this. This needs a bit of a clean toothbrush. A lot of people will take this switch out. They'll take this out, the volume control, just because it gets gunked up. I haven't found I've needed to. Maybe the Game Boys I've got are just treated a bit better, but I just use some isopropyl, use it on the switch, and I'm just lightly taking all the gunk that was on there. You just brush it up. And same on the other side. That said, I have a compressor down there, so just gonna give it a blow. Here we go. Nice, clean, ready to go. Good for another 25 years. This is the last 2 bits to solder. I'm going to oversize this wire just for now. Again, pinch, tin the wire. Now for the Hispeedido PCB, there is a bit that says BAT, and that's what we're going to solder to. 1 wire we're just going to attach, and you want to attach the same way as the flex cable. Just hold it like this, tap, done. So that is now in the same direction as the cable. Now, other than 1 solder point, all we have is assembly. Let's start putting it together. Now that little connector needs to go into that plug. Try and put something under the PCB and push away from the screen as you push the plug down. And there we go. Grab your insulating film. You want to make sure you're not covering anything in here, but you want to come down a bit just in case it moves, so you're not shorting on there. And the reason being for that, on the back of this has some very aggressive solder pins. Now what I actually did with this one is I used these. I forget the name of this tape. Just to double up, I put a strip over the pin. Next step, buttons. All right. You can see there's a little bit of white on the edge there. Carefully your finger hairs. It's gone. Just use a blowtorch. See the switch has it there. Gone. Ah, cramp. Now these all lock in. They all have their little places to go. Next step, membranes. 2 little pins. Done. Membranes are on. Just lift it so your buttons fall to the bottom and just find something to rest it on. Did make that wire too long, but that's okay. At this point, it's just being held together. Now we screw in. here's what we're looking like. At this point, check the buttons are all working. Our last solder point, I'm going to need the finer tip. So I'm going to take this one and swap it. As you can see, that is a much finer tip. Now you have 3, 2, C and 1. We're going to the C pin. And this is just a really quick one now. In the wire, please see what I've done there, because eyesight's not great. I'm just going to bring this over the top, take out the camera. Oh yeah, we made a mess of that. All right, we're slowly getting it fixed. We don't need that much solder on there. There we go. That's it. Our next step is to simply push that ribbon cable in. So we'll make sure these are open. This takes a little bit of a careful bend, but you will get it. So it helps if you push the bottom of it up a little bit. Push that one closed. Push that one closed. Cable's in. So our Game Boy is pretty much nearly finished. It's actually what stops the game slamming into the main board. So it's a shield. And that's just going to keep the wires in position. And I'm doing the same with this wire at the top. It's just there. A little bit of tape. What's interesting is all the friction on the switch comes off that little bump. Otherwise, the switch feels perfectly smooth. Interesting design. All right. I don't think any of their screws are tri-lobes. I think they're all Phillips in the kit. I'm putting the originals back. Keeps my kids out of it. Probably should have used a Phillips. Last screw. Done. Spring in. Clips. Now, right before we test it, there's one little thing we need to do. Isopropyl, just light, clean that bit up, blow on it so it evaporates nicely. I love these little touches of these aftermarket cases. It's not an original Game Boy sticker, but it makes it look close. And I quite like that touch. That's looking really good. Now the moment of truth. Battery 1, battery 2, cover, peel this off. See how amazing that screen looks. We need a game. This is an original Tetris, even the label's worn out. I need to get another label for this. How amazing does that look? Oh, that's incredible. Now this is a cover for the external port, done. While I do a quick bench tidy up, I need to hit print on one last bit that we need for our case. So this is TPU. It's been on here a while, which I probably should not have done. It's not a good thing to leave on your build plate for too long. I'm surprised it hasn't killed my plate now. Holy moly. So the last bit of this project is case assembly. Now the case itself isn't my design. I've designed the inserts. I'll provide the link to that as well. You can make bigger ones, deeper ones, ones with handles. They're absolutely fantastic. For assembly, 6 M3 by 30. Allen key heads, 2, 4, 5, 6. That's it. I did the lid last time first. This time I would do the fronts. Now there is no nut on this side. So as you screw it in, just watch the gap in here as it closes, that you don't snap these. You could effectively pull this straight up the thread and snap it, and you don't want to do that. And as you see that gap close, slow down and just make sure you're not feeling or seeing any flex in there. If you are, just back it off a little bit. So they're the front ones. The lid is exactly the same. You don't want the lid too tight. If you feel it grab, back a little bit off. There we go. I did notice this on the other one. One of these needed to be threaded all the way through. That is your lid locks installed. Now line this up. And again, from the outside, in, and you have a box. Now the next bit is this bit of TPU. Pull it off the build plate, and this is a TPU gasket. You'll see it's in. Grab something to run across it. And so this box has a little lip here that compresses on there. The bit that caught me out, I have scaled these down by 0.75 mil, both on the X and the Y axis. So not the Z axis for the Gridfinity height, but the X and the Y, they've had to go down by 0.75 of a mil in both directions. Without that, they were binding up and you couldn't pull it out. The second one is there are two holes here. Those holes, their pure and only purpose is to let air back out. Now I probably could have done that a bit better, but it works. What was happening was when you'd put it in, you'd go to remove it and the vacuum would just make it nearly impossible to get out. So scaling that down and it just drops in. Once it's in, the bottom one, give it a push and you'll find it's not locked in, but it's in better. It's not going to float around. Down the bottom is room for 2 games. Got some batteries. So holds 4 batteries. I'll raid my daughter's one. So that's what the bottom's looking like, which as a first attempt at designing something, I'm happy with. I did go a bit deep in the lid with the text on both of them because you can see the top text coming through. I will leave a version of the lid with and without the text. This is the second level. TPU liner, so it's nice and flexible. So when the kids put the Game Boys in and out, it doesn't damage it. This is made to be a little tighter, but if you just give it a little bit of a push, this is not made to come out, so that's why I've made it a little tighter. So it's a friction fit, so it doesn't fall out. And then when they put the Game Boys in, they're safe. There's no bashing them around. Now I'm going to grab 2 more games to show you. Now this is a pass-through. You can see it goes all the way through and then it goes into the bottom tray. That was the only way I could get 2 games installed vertically. I think so. So you drop that in and this is what it looks like. What I will say about this top tray, the original games will slide straight through. So if you lift this up, you'll end up with 2 games just sitting here. There is a cutout, and the reason the top bit's wider is because some of these games are not flat. They have that little bulge, and it's some of the Game Boy Color games that have the battery in them. So the battery, I think, uses the real-time clock. So instead of making it you had to put them in a certain way, I've made it that they can go in either way, but what that means is when you pull out, the games will actually come out with it. So unlike these ones, you lift and the games remain in the tray. So that is a design decision. I couldn't work out how to make them all lift out, but you can comfortably lift it out, pop it on a bench, super late edit. There's now a TPU lid bumper in the files. TPU 95A. The lid bumper locks the trays in against the lid. There's no pressure on the Game Boy. I just felt it's better now if you're throwing it into your luggage or into your backpack for travel. It does have some writing in there that says press here. It goes in this way, so when it's closed, there is a space for the games there. It's friction fit. Press in on those 2 corners, press in on these 2 corners, and then just press in on that edge. With bumper, no bumper. The top area has stopped moving around. The difference with and without this is clear. So that's a little bonus in the files. If you like projects like this, hitting like and subscribe really helps me keep them coming. Now on the 3D print, I've made it 2 colors. You don't have to do that. I just really like the one color on top and another one below. It's just my preference. The other thing I did to reduce color swaps, you will see there's the color line on the side. If you don't like that look, you can paint that out. For me, it was less color swaps, and I actually think it looks a little bit snazzy because it does match the color of the case. And that there is your Game Boy Color in a case.